Hi there, it's Shelby from Sponge. Today we're talking about landing page builders and specifically comparing Marketo, Unbounce, HubSpot, Knak, and Leadpages. In terms of Leadpages, this is what the UX looks like. There's one rail of controls over here on the left-hand side. Inside of these opens up a hierarchy. And then these sections are actually quite layered and nested. So inside each of these sections, I can open up the section style, and then there's containers, and then inside of the containers are additional elements. And I can click into any of these ellipses buttons and minutely control them. There's also something I really like up here at the top. It's kind of gamification for landing pages, where this lead meter encourages you to make tried and true, improvements, like use 3 bullets instead of 7, use special colors, etc., and nudge you towards making a higher converting page. This is a really good tool, I would say, to get started with landing pages and form pages. It's very easy to set up. I've set this up myself. It's easy to use, and it's also pretty cheap. In terms of fine print, you can't toggle content off for desktop versus mobile views, which is something I crave quite a bit, if I'm honest. But the responsive styling is completely built in. You don't have to separately style the mobile view. Styling in general is fixed to a grid that's hidden. So you can't drag and drop and exactly match designs that you get from your graphic designer. It is slightly more blunt. I sometimes feel frustrated that I can't get it to exactly match what the graphic designer gave me, but it's prettier than, say, a Marketo page for sure. Similarly, you can run A/B tests, which is great, and the analytics generally are fine, but I wouldn't say that they're like best in class. They're really strong in integrations. They have Calendly, and they're adding a ton regularly. I see a lot of development and investment on the back end of this tool. And if you don't have a marketing automation platform, this is also kind of a nice way to fake it, because you can send follow-up emails with something called a lead magnet. And you set up a little email, associate it to the form, and it sends that triggered email anytime somebody fills it out. It's also really easy to integrate Stripe or payment forms directly into the page. And they have pop-up forms, banner alerts based on some behavioral triggers, which are nice. I do find masking the URL is a little annoying and manual, and their WordPress plugin isn't very compelling. But they are, as I said, consistently rolling out new features. And so I think that bottom line, this is a cheap and relatively simple tool, but you won't be able to achieve like a bespoke design. Okay, Unbounce. This is what the Unbounce UX looks like. It's very dense. You can see there's these 2 gutters or rails full of tabs. We have our the ability to do a form confirmation dialog. You can add scripts on the page. You're controlling SEO really granularly. There's a lot of functionality. Unbounce to me is kind of like the Photoshop of this world, whereas Leadpages is more of the Canva. If you are a super user, if you're looking for extremely exacting control, this is a fabulous tool. And it is my favorite to build in because I am like a higher level user, I would say. I definitely would consider this the best in the market. The price has come down lately. Unbounce used to be very prohibitive for smaller companies. But if you have lower traffic volumes, it could be $80 a month. Like, it could be quite cheap to do this. Like I mentioned, it's drag and drop without a fixed grid. It's completely like fluid and liquid as you are building the pages, and you have complete control. It is quite like genuinely a joy to build and edit and crank these out. If you have HubSpot, the native integration of Unbounces is great. It's like pretty easy. Marketo's is not. And I will link in this video description our workaround, which is using a custom Marketo form submit to integrate with Marketo, because we do not like their native integration. You can toggle content off for mobile. This is very helpful. A normal form page translated to mobile is like feet long often. So it's nice to just, every single page I'll say that I publish in Unbounce, I remove mobile view content to keep it really streamlined and focused. So I do think that's quite helpful. The dilemma though is that mobile styling is done by hand. And unless you are conscientious about your process, you will forget to check the mobile view. And I see every marketer do this and every casual user do this. And the mobile views look crazy with overlapping like elements, and the form is zoomed way off into the margin. So that is a real risk in terms of user error. Like I mentioned, Unbounce is dense. It can be intimidating if you're a casual user. I think this really is intended for an admin, a super user, somebody who's in the tool every single week and knows how to make it sing. They know all the hidden tricks, like holding down Shift or Command as you're dragging elements around. For sure, this is the best A/B testing around. It's delightful to run tests in Unbounce. I find I always am running tests in Unbounce. It is not a chore at all, and therefore the pages consistently get smarter and more refined. It also has the best pop-up forms, banners, alerts. The triggers are extremely nuanced. This is also a really fun place to play in Unbounce. And again, you'll drive more conversions because you are more inclined to be in there. It's very simple to mask your domain. It's also extremely simple to apply scripts either on the page level or on a global level. So if you're, adding your Google Tag Manager, etc., it's a cinch. And Unbounce's documentation and support team and their community are stellar, absolutely the best in this industry. And there is a ton of value there. If you Google it, you will be able to find a step-by-step instruction from someone similar to the Marketo community of how to address this issue. So bottom line, pricey, but you have complete control. I don't recommend this for people who are going to be very casual users, but I think once you're into Unbounce and know how to make it work, you will never want to use anything again. I know I'm in that boat. HubSpot. So if you have HubSpot as your marketing automation platform, you should absolutely be using it for landing pages. It is, like all things HubSpot, extremely streamlined and intuitive. You have your modules over here on the side. There's a couple tabs. And then just like an email, you have a couple tabs at the top. So very simple, intuitive, clean. It uses drag and drop, which is nice. All the mobile modules are responsive. But as soon as you want to do something a little custom, just like with their emails, you're going to have to do it in HTML. And if you have any complex problems, or again, want help with a custom problem, the documentation and the support teams are not going to get you there. They just don't have the skills to help. Being HubSpot, progressive profiling is an absolute dream. Form integration obviously is completely seamless with HubSpot as your marketing automation platform. And it is lovely to have an account-wide branding hub with all of your imagery and colors and social links collected. It's also, if you're really serious about personalization, HubSpot is absolutely the best at it, and is probably its most powerful feature, especially if you're using things like HubSpot for your blog. You can really do some interesting things there. So if you already have HubSpot, I would definitely try building landing pages there first and seeing if you're looking for increasing design or functionality that hits the ceiling of what HubSpot can do. And then if you are, I would just bump up to Unbounce. Okay, Marketo. This is Marketo's UX. It's kind of a shock every time I show this to folks that indeed you are inside HTML immediately when it comes to creating a template and customizing one in Marketo. I do not like the Marketo LP builder, I have to say. I am not like a MOPS admin by any means. I'm a marketing director, so I am used to the nuts and bolts of actual campaign execution. And I cannot code my own templates. It costs money. I have to outsource it regularly. You also have to very thoroughly scope how you want your pages to function before you build those templates. So if I have one speaker for a webinar, or 2, or 3, or 4, I have to create a separate module for every single one of those variables and pay someone, if I'm honest, to code that for me, which is a pain. And inevitably, I want more functionality and brainstorm more functionality and can't get it in my landing page in time for the campaign itself. The form integration, obviously, if you have Marketo, the forms integrate perfectly. But if you want to format them and style them, you do that via CSS, which again, like I can't do personally, but your developer, designer, et cetera, would. You can, and this is a delight actually in Marketo, that you can integrate dynamic content and personalize it. Like all things Marketo, it's a little harder to click around and navigate than it is in a tool like HubSpot, but it is equally powerful. And probably the nicest thing about Marketo is the use of snippets, where you can globally update snippets across templates. So for example, if in your footer it says copyright 2023, on January 2nd of 2024, it takes like a minute to update your snippet and all of your pages. Whereas if I was an Unbounce, candidly, I would be spending hours going through and making those updates. And we often do for our Unbounce clients. You sometimes have to do like a really gnarly audit and clean up everything when you change a single customer logo, for example. So if you have a lot of repetition, if you have a design like a landing page template that you feel is really well tested and reliable, Marketo can be a great fit. Marketo is annoying sometimes to integrate with other tools, but it's just inflexible. So if you need to experiment, if you need flexibility, if you need custom functionality, I wouldn't recommend Marketo landing pages at all. And I would jump to a dedicated builder like Leadpages or Unbounce. The last is Knak. Knak is relatively new to me. I demoed them recently, and this is what their UX looks like. It's kind of a marriage of Unbounce and HubSpot visually, I would say. What's interesting is that Knak is actually designed for like mass producing Marketo emails. So if you are sending a lot of Marketo emails, I think it is a very compelling tool because it's API integration, like the way it syncs into Marketo, you drop things directly into programs. It's quite elegant, and I really see the appeal. But landing pages specifically, the functionality still seems very immature. So for example, I did not see any way to control SEO keywords or page titles or descriptions. And that's just kind of a deal breaker for me. It's also expensive. Like pricing starts, at least when I spoke with them, at $9,000 a year, which is by far the most expensive option. But again, I don't think people are getting the landing page builder itself. It really is about being able to do email at scale. So I think this tool, it has a lot of promise. It currently does not have a lot of horsepower on the landing page side. It's still easier to use than Marketo, if I'm honest. So if you're sending a lot of Marketo emails, I do think it's worth a demo of Knak to see if that $9,000 really does buy a lot more scale for you. And maybe those lightweight landing pages can get your job done as well, kind of as a bonus. But I would not buy Knak for that landing page functionality alone. Okay, great. If you want to learn more about Sponge, visit our website, sponge.io. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.